This is the February forecast. Welcome back to Awaken and Align. And before we get started on the February forecast, which, by the way, is going to be a condensed version this time, not because February is the shortest month of the year, but because I am jammed for time. But I wanted to show up nonetheless to give you my 2 cents about the energies of the month of February. But first, let's talk a little bit about January. And please let me know through Instagram DM at Awaken and Align, or through email, or on your reviews how your January has been going, and if any of the transits aspected your personal chart, or if events happen that you were like, wow, that was exciting, or wow, that was pretty on brand. Because this is how I like to use astrology. I like to use astrology in my everyday life. I use it to plan, I use it to launch business things, sign contracts. So I really do use the astrological transits based on my own natal chart for my own personal life. The biggest thing that happened to me in the month of January, which I will tie into the Pluto and Aquarius ingress that happened last month, was all of a sudden my social media presence has exploded. I have been researching more, because Pluto has this level of intensity. It shows the shadow aspects of yourself and of the collective, and it digs deep into the underworld. Pluto was the god of the underworld. And so I've been doing a lot of research, I've been doing a lot of content creation. And because of that, my own personal life has become very, has been put on the back burner. Let's just say that. So it's all exciting stuff. I've been working on a lot of interesting projects and things that I've always wanted to do. It's just now I'm just very busy. And so I'm sorry that I'm not going to be going through the day-to-day aspects in the month of February, because also I have been planning to do this episode for like a week now, but because I'm so busy, I didn't have enough energy and I was getting tired and also sad and just feeling a little wonky these days. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in February, but wait, let me just not get there yet. Let's just continue to talk about January. So January, we had Pluto moving into the sign of Aquarius on January 20th, I believe. And I felt it right away because I have Aquarius placements and it's sextiling my sun, which is at 0 degrees. So immediately I felt like my mind was going into 1,000 different places, just random downloads coming into my mind where I would want to go down these rabbit holes of research. And if you listen to the Pluto in Aquarius episode I just did, that was a lot of the research that I was starting to do. And again, it's all exciting stuff. It's all things that I'm personally interested in and what I want to share with other people, but it just has been taking up a lot of time. And I got a little sick from burnout, having burnout symptoms again. So just, the usual. And honestly, that's like the biggest thing I remember happening last month. I'm sure there were other things that if I looked back in my journal and if I like tracked it with the transits, I could like remind myself, but nothing else really seemed to compare to the Pluto entering back into the sign of Aquarius. So please do let me know what you experienced. And I totally forgot to do the rising signs of the Pluto in which area of the natal chart based on your rising sign. So I'm going to do it now. So if you didn't listen to the episode where I talk about Pluto in Aquarius, I said that I was going to name the house that Pluto was going into. Then I totally forgot at the end. So I am a tropical Western whole sign house astrologer. So these are ingresses into your Aquarius house based on the whole sign. If you use Placidus, then you're going to have to look that up yourself because Placidus, you can have an Aquarius that goes between two houses. And that's just like too confusing for my brain right now. So I use whole sign houses for timing techniques and just to make it easier on myself. So if you are an if you are an Aries rising, your Aquarius house is the 11th, and Pluto just entered there. It's going to be there for 20 years. And the 11th house is all about the community, your social groups, your fans, if you're on social media. It is the collective. The 11th house can also mean your hopes and your wishes and your dreams. It is a favorable house because it is in a sextile position to the ascendant, and we always go by the ascendant in terms of favorable or non-favorable aspects. If they're not in favorable houses, that doesn't mean that you're doomed for the next 20 years. Trust me, I had Pluto in my second house for the last 15. Pluto gives you gifts, okay? So having Pluto here, sextiling your ascendant can be really great. I actually have Pluto in my 11th house natally. And so, sure, there's some shadowy aspects surrounding like your role in groups. Like you might feel like you don't fit in. You might feel like you're the black sheep or, you're an outcast of some kind. But then also, Pluto in the 11th house can mean you meet influential, powerful, wealthy people in your social networks. So, either way, it's sextile your ascendant. It's a favorable aspect. It's not going to be as difficult for you as it was with possibly other people who have it in houses that are in conjunct. And Pluto was moving through your 10th house of career for the last 15 years. So, whatever Pluto was transforming in your career sector, you might receive the rewards, in your 11th house. Taurus, now Aquarius is your 10th house of career. And Pluto moving here is signifying a transformation in your career. Now, career is very capitalistic, isn't it? Like, what if you don't care about your career? Or what if you're not career oriented? This is just like something that you want to call in or something that you want to be known for, which is different than your job and which is different than what you have to do to survive in this economy. So whenever I read charts for people are who are mothers and don't necessarily have a career, it's what you believe that you are on this planet for. It's what you want to grow for the long term, like legacy kind of stuff. So that's exciting. And this is going to be very impactful for you because the 10th house is one of the angular houses. So the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th are angular houses. And when planets like Pluto ingress into angular houses, you feel them, you notice them, it reverberates into your whole chart. And it's going to possibly make you more well known, especially if you have the midheaven in the 10th whole sign house. Okay, so Geminis, your Aquarius house is the 9th house, and Pluto moving here will have you transform your belief systems. Maybe you will convert maybe you'll get more spiritual, or you convert religions, or maybe get rid of religion altogether. Maybe a influential like guru or teacher will enter your life, or multiple teachers will enter your life with this Pluto transit. The ninth house is foreign lands, foreign places, higher education, learning, publishing. You might be able to publish a book during this time and maybe has something to do with, I don't know, like collective, I'm just thinking about Aquarius, the collective healing, collective spirituality. And you're going to be well known for this book or this teaching that you're doing. Oh, and you can also become a teacher during this time. Cancer, Aquarius is your eighth house, and Pluto entering here. Wowzers. So the eighth house is one of the houses that are in an inconjunct to the first house. So it's not something you can see. And the eighth house is other people's money, other people's resources, is the house of receiving resources and money from other people. So Pluto entering here can mean you're going to have like a wealthy, powerful benefactor or an investor in your company, or you might inherit a lot of money because the eighth house is the house of inheritance. You might also get into the occult or hidden knowledge because the eighth house, also in modern astrology, the significations can be occult knowledge, psychology. Like I said, it's a hidden house. So you might not really know what this Pluto transit will mean for you until much later if you have personal planets here in Aquarius or it's squaring to your other fixed sign placements. But it's going to be a little bit of a more of a mystery, like something you're going to have to dig deep into, and it might be of the mind. And I'm just saying that since Aquarius is a air sign. Leo, Aquarius is your seventh house of one-on-one partnerships. And with Pluto entering here, you're one of those people where it is an angular house. So anytime Pluto enters an angular house, like I said, for Taurus, you're going to notice it like right away, especially if you have placements in Aquarius. I mean, you're a Leo rising, so you have fixed sign placement. This could have you meeting. So I was just talking to my friend who is a Leo rising, and her descendant is at 2 degrees. So Pluto is there at 0 degrees, and she's been experiencing some obsessive behaviors with people. And that's another thing. Pluto tends to bring like obsessive behaviors out of yourself and other people, especially with other people, since this is opposite you. This is the house of the other. You can end up meeting like a very powerful or influential or wealthy partner or person that you're going to do business with. Depending on the degree of your rising sign, like let's say you're a Leo rising anywhere from 0 to like 5-6 degrees, you're already feeling this. Later degree Leos, you might not be feeling this until later on in the Pluto and Aquarius transit, which lasts for 20 years. But yeah, you're going to feel this. And like I said, Pluto in the seventh house might mirror some of your own shadow aspects in other people. So I would recommend you read Carl Jung's book, Shadow Work. Virgo, your Aquarius house is the sixth house. And with Pluto entering here, you are transforming your day-to-day habits. The sixth house is the everyday mundane things that make our dreams come true. It's not a sexy house. I'm just in my sixth house perfection year. And anybody with sixth house placements know this. You're just busy. You're just busy getting it done. And what I've experienced in the last year is it's a lot of work that you don't necessarily get any rewards from or recognition from. But when you do finally, it's like, OMG, like this is huge. So, like I said, it's not a sexy house, but it is a very important house because it's the house of service. It's the house of doing your day-to-day habits and having a habit to get you to make your dreams or your reality come true. It is also the house of coworkers, so you might have power dynamics with coworkers. It is also the house of pets, so you might get a pet. And work, you might just shift your work. You might have like different kinds of work that might entail you to do Aquarius themes, like being more humanitarian, taking into consideration the collective. Maybe you're forming networks or getting more into social media, things of that nature. Libra, Aquarius is your fifth house, and Pluto entering here will transform your romantic life. Hello. And the fifth house is also about play, creativity. It's the house where we birth things. It's also the house of the inner child and children. So the fifth house is the house of good luck. It is in a trine aspect, 120 degrees from the ascendant. So this is like a very, I think, exciting time. Now, there's always a caveat with Pluto, right? Because Pluto is an intense, extreme energy. So it might bring obsessive romantic partners. People just might become obsessed with you, or you might become obsessed with things and people, or you might be hyper focused on your creativity and trying to make things happen. Or Pluto in the fifth house doesn't necessarily signify having children, but you might become very obsessed with your children if you have them, or becoming pregnant. Or it can bring up some of the shadow aspects of your relationship with your children, again, if you have them. But otherwise, this is a great time to, Pluto goes into the underworld, discover some sexy time. What gives you pleasure? Like explore themes of pleasure, maybe getting into like Tantra or reading romantasy books. So that's exciting. Okay, so Scorpio, you are another fixed sign placement. Aquarius is your fourth house, which is your home, ancestry, foundation. It's a very important house. It's the foundation of our chart. We have to feed our fourth house in order for our 10th house to bloom. And so Pluto entering here is transforming your home, your relationship to your family. And it might bring out skeletons in the closet. You might find out something in your ancestry that you were like, huh, I didn't know that. Or like a family secret that, came out and that changes the course of your like relationship with your family or yourself. But like I said with Taurus and Leo, and what I'm also going to tell Aquarius, Pluto in the angular houses, any transit through the angular houses is felt at multiple levels because they are the bones of our chart. But the fourth house in particular is our foundation, like I mentioned. And so maybe Pluto entering here too, you might move homes, you might move away from your homeland, your motherland, or you might return back to understand the roots. With your fourth house being Aquarius, though, yeah, you might have this sense of like, who am I in this collective? Like, who am I in the collective of my ancestors? And then you start doing research and investigative work. I mean, you're kind of like that anyway, Scorpio rising. Like you're very resourceful. You want to find things out. You want to know the truth. You dig deep. You're very intense. So yeah, I'm curious to hear some of the Scorpio risings, how this transit will be for you. So for Sag rising, like me, the third house, and I was sharing at the beginning of this recording that when Pluto entered my third house, I have been researching a lot. I have been creating a lot of content. I've been, yeah, just really busy with everything. the third house is a cadent house, which is busy anyway. And if you have personal placements like I do in Aquarius, it's like magnified. um, but having Pluto in the third house can give you a like you can be an influential speaker or influencer or writer because the third house is also communication. It's also in modern astrology, I guess you could call this like your third house is social media, your social media presence, whereas the 11th house is like your fans. You can become like a prominent writer during this time, but like the ninth house is more book publishing, and the third house is more like writing a column that shows up every month or something like that. So Pluto here is nicer than when Pluto was in the second house for the last 15 years because it'll be sextiling your ascendant. So just like with Aries rising and all the fire sign risings, except for Leo, sorry, Leo, Pluto will finally be making a sweet aspect to the rising sign. So I'm already liking this way better than when Pluto was in the second. So I don't know. Other Sag risings, let me know. Capricorn rising, you are experiencing Pluto in the second house, which, hello, I just went through this for the last 15 years. Pluto in the second house is interesting because Pluto transforms, right? And the second house is our finances, our resources, it's our self-worth and confidence, and it's what we feed ourselves. So because the second house, you can't see it from the rising sign, I personally didn't like understand my Pluto transit until way later in the transit. And also because of the aspects Pluto was making to other like things in my chart. But I have to give you some piece of advice as somebody who just went through this. The best thing you can do during this transit is to work on your self-worth and your confidence, and also your relationship to money. Like during this transit, I made the most money and then I made like the least amount of money. It was these highs and lows and these extremes of my finances, and the way that I was making money transformed, because at the beginning of this transit in 2008 is when I started working in finance in New York City. And then, which is like, you know, in my finance career, I was making the most money, and then became an entrepreneur where I was making the least amount of money. And then now with Pluto moving out of that area, I'm finally like, I finally grasp, fingers crossed, Pluto, this transit and its teachings, which was all about, actually had nothing to do with money, but my own sense of self-worth and confidence. So that's the biggest advice I can give for you, is to work on that. And a lot of times during this transit, I was asking myself, like, what is money? You know, like, what is it? Why are people obsessed with it? And you might become obsessed with it because Pluto has that energy. Good luck. So our Aquarius risings, who are definitely going to go through a transformation of self. So Pluto transforms everything, goes through life, death, rebirth, transformation. And when you have, so I went through this, I'm trying to think, like, in my teens and 20s was when Pluto was transiting my first house. And obviously, like, even without understanding astrology, those were probably the most informative and tumultuous years of my life because I was trying to figure myself out. But Pluto makes people also intense and obsessed. So you might become obsessed with your physical appearance. You might start to care about that a lot if you didn't. Or on the opposite side, because it does have like the highs and lows, like intensity wise, you might not become interested at all in your physical appearance, but your body will change. So you might be going through some kind of ego death as well, you know, with Pluto, since Pluto is the lord of the underworld, and just looking at your shadows, just looking at like what is the purpose of my life? Like, why am I here? And it's a 20-year transit. So it's a long transit, is what I'm trying to say. So don't be afraid, because we're all thinking about that anyway. Like, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? Or maybe is that just me? But anywho, you are the trailblazers. You are the future forward thinkers. You are the rebels. You are the revolutionaries. You are the ones holding it down, because we are entering the age of Aquarius, or we have already, and you are the leaders of this energy. So in order to be the leader, you have to also embody and resonate on this frequency. So last but not least, we have Pisces rising in the 12th house is your Aquarius. And with Pluto going into your 12th house, you are transforming the hidden areas of your life. So the 12th house is the hidden realm, is the hidden places in our life. So the 12th house is so interesting to me. I have the ruler of my chart in the 12th house. So it's this like lifelong understanding of what that means. And the time of day that is the 12th house is right after sunrise. So it's like that liminal space where it was dark and it's just getting light. And so with planets that are in the 12th house, whether you have them natally or they transit there, it's trying to get you to see something that you wouldn't otherwise see. And so that is why the 12th house represents things like our fears, our self-undoing behaviors. It represents hidden places like ashrams, libraries, prisons, hospitals, just things that you don't necessarily see, unless you go to them. So my sister, she has a 12th house stellium, and she used to be a nurse that worked in a hospital, very on brand for her. Or if you have a 12th house transit, like I remember when I had, I believe Saturn or Jupiter transiting my 12th house is when I was really into going on retreats. And when I would go on these like silent meditations and stuff like that. So it's a healing time. It's a healing time to purge any lingering things that you've carried on from past lives or past life karma. And like I said, with every other group, Pluto is the planet of transformation, but it's all these highs and lows that you'll go through in that long 20-year transit. So that is the 12 rising signs. And let's get into the February forecast. So like I mentioned, I'm just going to mention the major ones. So we go from Aquarius season, which is a fixed air sign, which is like the dead middle of winter. And I am here in the northeast of the United States of America. Again, I don't know why I always have to do that, but then we go into on February 18th, the sun will ingress into the sign of Pisces. Then we get into the mutable water sign, which is all about consciousness and spirituality. And so it's a huge vibe shift, like every month is. But what I find interesting about the start of February is we have these massive stelliums in the sign of Aquarius, and then we'll have them in the sign of Pisces. So your Aquarius house, and I just went through all the rising signs and what they mean, will be going through something major, because these Aquarius conjunctions are happening at 0 degrees. And remember back in December 20th of 2020, there was a Saturn. Now I'm going to mess this up because I always do. Saturn Jupiter conjunction in the sign of Aquarius at 0 degrees. And that was the beginning of this Aquarius house activation. So right away on February 5th, Mercury enters the sign of Aquarius, and it immediately conjuncts Pluto at 0 degrees. So Mercury and Pluto is powerful speech. It's powerful messaging. It is like if you have something you want to say and you want it to reverberate into the cosmos, this might be a good day. But also, on the other hand, this might have people might use their words as weapons. That's more of like a Mercury Mars thing, but just be careful because what people say to you might trigger you and bring up wounds as signified by Pluto. And then um on on February, let's see, on February 9th, we have a new moon in the sign of Aquarius at 20 degrees. So this new moon is the start of the Lunar New Year, which is the wood dragon. And every Lunar New Year begins with a new moon in Aquarius, which I find to be so fascinating because the moon in astrology, especially in a nation's chart, represents the people. And it's the lunar calendar, right? So lunar societies like Asians and people who follow the lunar calendar are just more collective minded in general. And Aquarius is a collective sign. So February 9th, here, at least in the East Coast of the United States, is the new moon in Aquarius at 20 degrees. And right after that is the Lunar New Year, which is the year of the dragon. And I'm so excited to be having Tiff Rex back on to talk about what that means. They were on the last 2 years in a row. Last year was the yin water rabbit, and the year before that was the yang water tiger. So this is a big deal because it's like a reset in the lunar calendar. And I personally don't really believe in January 1st being anything, you know, the Gregorian calendar. I really do go by the lunar calendar, and then also things really starting up during the Aries season, because I don't want to start anything in the middle of the winter during Capricorn season. Anyway, that's enough of my rant. Let's move on to February 14th, which, if you subscribe to Hallmark, that is Valentine's Day. Mars will be conjunct Pluto in the sign of Aquarius at 00 degrees. And the day before that, I should have mentioned Mars will enter the sign of Aquarius. Now, I don't know. I always thought that Valentine's Day was weird to have in Aquarius season because that is not a sexy season. It should be more like Pisces season. But anyway, Mars conjunct Pluto it is an aspect of conflict and war. And when I talked about Mars and Pluto last October, I was still doing the forecast with Stephanie Campos. We had a Mars in the sign of Libra square Pluto in Capricorn on October 7th. We were both like, ooh, that's a very, very dicey transit for conflict, fights, war. Just, it's really intense. So Mars is the planet of war, it's the god of war, conjunct Pluto, which brings up wounding and power dynamics at 00 degrees, which is a critical degree. I really do hope that we can come together as a collective to fight for what's right. That is my most positive spin on this, is that we like do the right thing and we allow people to be free and the occupation basically. So that's February 14th. On February 16th, Venus will enter the sign of Aquarius. So like I said, we have these stelliums in Aquarius. So just again, look at what area of your life that is, look at the whole sign house. And then right away, on February 17th, Venus will be conjunct Pluto at 00 degrees. So obviously there's always two sides to, or multiple sides to a transit, right? You could see that Venus and Pluto as like, hey, sexy time. It can bring out passion, but at the same time, it can also bring out obsession. and some like fatal attraction kind of stuff. Have you ever seen that movie with Michael Douglas and Glenn Close? I always bring that movie up, especially to Gen Z, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. But that movie to me is a Venus Pluto situation. So maybe on that day, you want to watch that movie for some of the warning signs of this conjunction. So then on February 18th, the sun moves into the sign of Pisces. So now we are the sun, which gives us life force, which gives us energy. It puts the spotlight onto that area of your life. It's moving into Pisces. So now your Pisces house is going to start to get activated. And Pisces, like I said, is a mutable water sign. Some things related to Pisces is like the expansive consciousness, the ocean. It is ruled by Jupiter, so it's expansion, but more inward expansion. It is music and art. It's like beauty. It's really finding the beauty and sacredness of all things that you can't necessarily touch, but you feel. So on February 22nd, Venus and Mars will conjunct at 6 degrees. Now, Venus and Mars have not been together in the sky, I think, in a minute. I should have looked that up. I'm so sorry, but it's been a minute. I think it's been a year. I think the last time they were together, they weren't exactly conjunct when they were both traveling in the sign of Leo. That's what that was. And the reason why this is important is because last year, when the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio, the North Node was ruled by Venus and the South Node was ruled by Mars. And now we have a North Node in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and a South Node ruled by Libra, which is Venus. So we are really understanding the archetypes of Venus and Mars. And Venus and Mars in mythology, Roman mythology, were lovers. Venus is like Aphrodite and Mars is the god of war, Aries. So we are trying to integrate as a collective these two energies, Venus and Mars. Venus is the planet of attraction and being in the receptive mode. Mars is the planet of action and getting after things. And I've had this conversation a lot with women this week that most of us feel like we have to be in the masculine because we exist in a patriarchy that is violent and doesn't respect women. But the beauty in Venusian energy is to know your worth and know that you are worthy and be confident in that energy, that everything you need will be attracted to you, and receiving is just as important as giving. And that's something that I feel we were not taught how to do that stuff. And just as an FYI, we manifest or co-create through receiving, through attraction. It is the law of attraction based on the law of resonance and vibration. So then on February 23rd, Mercury will enter the sign of Pisces. And I have Mercury in Pisces. It is said to be in its detriment and it's debilitated because the opposite sign, Mercury, is in its domicile, which is Virgo. And let me tell you something about my Mercury in Pisces. I love my Mercury in Pisces. Okay. Don't let anybody tell you that you're debilitated or detriment or fallen planets are crap, because that's not true. I find my Mercury in Pisces to be poetic. I think of things like my mind and the way I think is like that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm able to make connections that some people miss. I do love music, and it's like I can hear different instruments when I hear a song. So there's like all this beauty in Mercury and Pisces that I feel like some Western, let's just say it, white men say is like, Mercury and Pisces, like it doesn't function like it's supposed to. Well, maybe it's not supposed to function in the way that you want, Chad. Okay. Because Mercury, when it's in Gemini or Virgo, sure, they have the intellect, they have the analysis, they're able to, have clarity of mind, but that's not as fun as my chaotic Mercury and Pisces. So that's my little spiel of Mercury and Pisces. So starting on February 28th. I'm sorry, let me take a step back. February 24th, because I cannot miss this lunation, is the full moon in Virgo at 5 degrees. So think back to when there was a new moon in Virgo back in September. And now, whatever seeds you planted or intentions might come to fruition now at this full moon. And yeah, 5 degrees. See if you have any Virgo placements in and around 5 degrees, or Pisces placements, Gemini or Sag, because if you have mutable sign placements, you will be affected by this, but everybody has Virgo somewhere in your chart. So now we're going to go to February 28th, which happens to be my Pisces mother's 70th birthday. Happy birthday, Yuna Chung. But that day stood out to me because Mercury in Pisces will be conjunct the sun in Pisces at 9 degrees. Then on the same day, Mercury in Pisces will be conjunct Saturn in Pisces at 9 degrees. Then on the same day, the sun in Pisces will be conjunct Saturn in Pisces at 9 degrees. So you have Mercury and the sun and Saturn all at 9 degrees on February 28th. Whenever things like that happen, when there's like multiple conjunctions on a single day, I always highlight that day, because that is just like, not only are conjunctions like that the energy of like a new moon, it's like a reset, it's like a new thing happening, new cycle starting, but because there's 3 planets together, that means that they are the ruler of different like houses of your chart, different areas of your life. So you want to look at like, what does Mercury rule in your chart? What does the sun rule in your chart? What does Saturn rule in your chart? And that's like 5 areas of your life all being impacted by these 3 conjunctions. So that's a pretty big deal. And then you want to see like, where do you have 9 degrees? If you have placements in and around 9 degrees of Pisces, like I have my Mercury at 11 degrees in Pisces. So like, I'm already thinking like, what does that mean? um, like it can mean a lot of things, but I usually, like I said, I usually mark these days in my calendar, and then I pay attention to what's happening. And on February 28th, which is my mother's 70th birthday, we're all doing something for her birthday. So I'm going to be hyper aware of the things that are going to happen on that day. And maybe that's just that. It's like, that is the transit. It's just us celebrating my mom's big milestone birthday. So that is really like the major transits I noticed for February 2024. Again, like there are all sorts of other things going on in February, but I wanted to highlight to you the big ones, like the stellium of planets in Aquarius, and then the ones in Pisces on February 28th, and then the 2 lunations, and then the ingresses. And overall, like it does seem like what we're going through now is a preparation for the eclipses that are going to be starting again. Just going to look ahead just to give you a little heads up. On March 25th is the lunar eclipse in Libra at 5 degrees. So it's like January was, the big Pluto in Aquarius transit. And then now we're like ramping up to something until we get to the eclipses in March and April. So I really do hope and pray that you are all well and safe. And thank you so much for always listening and for just always supporting me. And I will see you next month. Bye.